Part 1, the opening incision in the global financial operation. You're about to watch a video that you might want to save, because 2, maybe 3 years from now, when the walls collapse, you'll come back to this clip. Not to share it, but to crumble in silence, because you were warned, and still did nothing. I'm going to dissect the coming financial crisis, not with media headlines, not with speculation, but with raw economic data, repeatable financial patterns, and the real behavior of the elites who own the world's largest banks. The lens I'm using? It's not from textbooks. It's built from the minds who designed the system. Long-term credit cycles, like blueprints drawn in blood. Leverage cycles, where stability breeds fragility. Financial psychology loops, irrational by design. And the most hidden of all, central bank ownership structures, where money is summoned from thin air. I'll drag into light what the powerful would rather keep buried, from hidden warnings that echoed 1930 to debt games the size of 2008 but bigger. Every layer stripped down, with systems thinking as the scalpel. This isn't a video saying, be careful, a crisis might come. This asks, if you were the architect of the financial system, when would you trigger a collapse? And for what purpose? We'll break it down into 6 blades. 1. Current macro financial landscape, interest rates, government debt, credit flows, liquidity. What are they screaming that you can't hear? 2. Historical cycles of finance. Why does every boom lead to a bust? And why do the rich always end up richer after a crisis? 3. Behavior of the financial elite. They don't predict crises. They plan for them. Then they wait, like wolves in the fog. 4. Probability of real collapse. No vague fear-mongering. We measure it through leverage ratios, asset bubbles, and the gap between debt and real income. 5. Unspoken financial laws. Not in books, not in news, yet they dictate 100% of all crises. 6. Inverted logic. If I were part of the class that controls money itself, what would I gain from triggering a meltdown? This is not a clickbait show. We're not here to entertain. We're here to connect data, history, and buried logic, the pieces ordinary minds overlook. Part 2, macro data. The interest rates are now at their highest in 20 years. From late 2021 to 2023, central banks raised them like they were choking the economy into submission. In the US and Europe, policy rates surged by about 4 percentage points. In developing countries, as high as 6.5 percentage points. The fallout? Borrowing costs exploded. Governments plunged deeper into debt. Businesses panicked. And households? Bled dry. Global debt burdens the breaking point. Total global debt, governments, corporations, individuals, has surpassed $307 trillion, or 336% of global GDP. Before the 2008 crisis, it was only 278%. Right now, every single human on Earth is carrying $37,500 in debt, while average income is barely $12,000. Public debt alone? It ballooned from 58% of GDP in 2007 to over 102% in 2022. And with interest rates this high, national budgets can't even cover interest payments, let alone fund healthcare, education, or social programs. The World Bank has already warned. More than 100 countries will have to slash essential budgets just to service their debt. Cut healthcare, cut education, cut social safety nets, and ultimately, cut public trust. Save this video so that a few years from now you'll look back and ask, I knew this was coming, but what the hell did I do about it? Part 3. The cracks are spreading, but the crowd is still laughing. Inflation down but far from calm. After inflation spiked to 8 to 9% from 2021 to 2022, many sighed in relief. But that sigh was a mistake. Inflation has slowed, but it hasn't returned to target. Core inflation in the US and Europe is still hovering around 4%, far above expectations. This is forcing central banks into a ruthless stance. High rates and holding. The new mantra? Higher for longer, a blade hanging above the economy's neck. But what's the cost? Prolonged tightening exposes weaknesses that cheap money used to hide. The IMF has been blunt. The world is tilting toward a bad scenario. The cracks are everywhere, but the media stays silent. Across both developed and emerging markets, small and mid-sized businesses are bleeding out. Many are now just paying interest, not principal. That's the kill zone right before mass defaults. Over $5.5 trillion in corporate debt is maturing within 12 months, but now they'll have to refinance at double or triple the interest rate. Many won't survive. And for everyday people, mortgage rates and consumer loans have doubled, but incomes haven't. Credit card defaults, auto loan defaults. In the UK and Australia, housing prices are tanking because too many can't afford the monthly squeeze. Commercial real estate, already on life support. High rates drove investors away. Transactions are drying up, and some landlords are defaulting, setting off contagion risks inside the banking system. Liquidity. The money hose has been clamped, but markets are still dreaming. 20 to 2021 was the age of infinite rescue. Now, central banks are doing the opposite. Quantitative tightening, pulling money out of the system. Global capital flows are turning cold. Money is fleeing China, scared of a real estate implosion. But here's the paradox. Markets are still rising. Stocks are cheerful. Bonds are buoyant. Investors are betting on a fragile narrative. A soft landing is coming. High rates will tame inflation without breaking the system. This belief, if shattered by a sudden shock like a medical jolt, a major bank collapse, a hedge fund blow-up, then the dominoes fall. And no one gets to the exit in time. Macro summary. What are we standing in front of? The highest interest rates in 20 years. Historic highs in public and private debt. Inflation still uncontained. Signs of widespread defaults. Liquidity being drained. It's 1929 again. It's 2007 all over. Only this time, the leverage is worse. We're at the end of the credit expansion cycle. The cheap money party is over. And those who borrowed the most are now the ones bleeding first. Part 4, the crisis cycle. Not an accident, a setup. If you think financial crises are accidents, you've been played. Financial history makes it clear. Crises always mark the snap point of financial cycles. And those cycles, they're man-made. The Austrian school, Ludwig von Mises, Hayek, traced every collapse back to one root: artificial interest rates and cheap credit engineered by central banks. They called it the artificial credit cycle. And what does it cause? Businesses get lured into cheap borrowing. They pour capital into long-term, high-risk projects, massive waves of misallocated investment, an entire phantom economy built on phantom expectations. But once cheap money runs dry, it all collapses. Bubbles deflate. Recession kicks in. Murray Rothbard put it bluntly. Recessions are necessary. They purge the errors caused by fake cheap money. And if governments keep rescuing, keep printing, they're not solving. They're compounding. The next collapse, it won't be a correction. It'll be a reckoning. Now it's your turn. You've just absorbed parts 3 and 4. The real cracks spreading. The historical patterns that never fail to repeat. Save this video, because if you scroll past this now, then next time your portfolio drops 50% overnight, no one will be around to say, you were warned. Part 5, Unchanging Laws and the Coming Seismic Moment. Minsky cycle, stability breeds fragility. Here's the bitter paradox. The longer stability lasts, the more fragile the system becomes. Hyman Minsky, a Keynesian economist, saw this coming decades ago. He called it the financial instability hypothesis. 3 layers of debt like tectonic plates beneath us. 1, hedge finance. Borrowers can pay both interest and principal. This is the early stage. Cautious, stable. 2, speculative finance. Borrowers can only pay interest. They must keep rolling over principal. The debt treadmill. 3, Ponzi finance. Can't even pay interest. Survival depends on asset prices rising fast enough to sell and repay, or borrowing even more. The danger? When stability lasts too long, investors get cocky. They believe risk is dead. They drift quietly from hedge, speculative, Ponzi, until the system becomes thin ice. Then suddenly, asset prices stop climbing, or interest rates tick up. Boom, the system implodes. Minsky called this the Minsky moment. A major player defaults, dominoes fall, full-blown crisis. Minsky's core point: stability is never permanent. It's just storing up a bigger collapse. Ray Dalio's debt cycle, the long game of leverage. Dalio goes deeper. He saw 2 cycles spinning like gears. Short-term debt cycles, 7 to 10 years. Long-term debt cycles, 50 to 75 years. In every short cycle, the economy heats up. Rates are hiked to cool it. Businesses collapse under pressure. Central banks slash rates and inject liquidity. The outcome? The economy recovers, but debt grows bigger. Each recovery comes with lower interest rate floors. Every rescue raises the dosage. After too many rescues, rates hit 0%. No more room. Meanwhile, debt now dwarfs real income. The system hits a wall. Traditional tools stop working. A long-term crisis begins, forcing a complete overhaul of the system. History proves it. 1920s, U.S. borrowed heavily, widespread defaults, Great Depression. 1980-2008, global leverage soared, global financial crisis 2008. In both cases, rates hit zero. Debt far outpaced ability to repay. The system had to be saved by printing money on a massive scale. After each collapse, a reset. 1930s, U.S. dropped the gold standard, Bretton Woods emerged. 2008, the age of zero interest rates plus quantitative easing began. New regulations were born. After every reset, the monetary order shifts. But human behavior never changes. Three classic financial doctrines predicted nearly every major crisis, each with a unique lens. 1. Austrian school. Artificially low interest rates drive businesses to pour capital into bad, risky ventures. When cheap money dries up, bubbles burst. Recessions are necessary purges. 2. Minsky cycle. The more stable it feels, the more dangerous it becomes. Debt escalates from manageable to madness. The Minsky moment comes when you least expect it. 3. Dalio's debt cycle. Short cycles compound into a long-term trap. Once rates hit zero and debt explodes, crisis isn't a stumble. It's a total system reboot. In summary, where are we now? Global debt is at an all-time high. Interest rates hit 0% during 2020. Central banks are out of bullets. And yet, the market is blindly euphoric. Ray Dalio once said, "If you don't study history, you'll be crushed by it." You're watching this? You've read this far? Stop. Save this. Because that Minsky moment, or the final phase of Dalio's long-term cycle, could be just months away. And when it hits, the crowd will cry, "Why didn't anyone warn me?" Part 6. Signs of what's coming and how the elite engineer crises. The warnings were always in the cycles. You don't need a crystal ball. You just need to understand the ancient laws of money. Austrian economists warned, overextended credit is a time bomb. Minsky warned, the more euphoric the market, the more hidden the risk. Dalio warned, when debt peaks, interest rates hit zero, and there's no more room to cut, the end is near. So the real question is, where are you on this cycle map? Because right now, global debt is at historic highs. Rates hit zero during the pandemic. Markets are still blindly optimistic. We may be standing at the end of a long cycle and the beginning of a painful reset. What do the financial elite do in times like these? They don't panic. They don't wait for news. They're not victims. They are the architects of the tsunami. 1. Manipulate the credit cycle. During the boom phase, big banks flood the system with credit. Loan standards are loosened. Complex financial products are created to supercharge leverage. Think CDOs from 2005 to 2007. Asset prices soar, stocks, real estate, commodities. The masses feel rich on paper. Everyone borrows. Everyone speculates. Result? The elite cash in. Banks rake in interest. Hedge funds gorge on price spikes. Euphoric media keeps dopamine levels high. 2. Exit quietly. When the cracks appear, insiders discreetly unload assets or buy insurance, shorting subprime CDS hedges. Meanwhile, retail investors are drunk on gains. No one sees it coming. No one makes it out in time. Then the hammer drops, assets crash, credit freezes, panic erupts. But the game designers, already gone. 3. Selective rescue. Whoever's closest to the money lives first. The infamous quote, "Profits are private, losses are socialized." The elite always get rescued first. 2008 TARP bailout, quantitative easing for megabanks, massive rate cuts, and most recently, the monetary bazooka of COVID-19. What's the Cantillon effect? Newly printed money always flows first to those closest to the money printer. Banks, hedge funds, conglomerates. They scoop up assets at fire sale prices. Meanwhile, small businesses and average workers get droplets, if anything. Example? In 2020, the Fed pumped trillions into the system. Investment fund stocks surged 35% in a single day because markets believed the Fed will buy up their toxic debt. 4. Dump the risk on society. During the boom, the elite reaped all the rewards. But when the bubble bursts, the pain is dumped on the public. How? Taxpayer-funded bailouts, inflation driven by uncontrolled money printing. Who suffers most? Fixed-wage workers, those holding cash or savings. Inflation silently erodes their income. Meanwhile, asset owners, the elite, see their wealth rise. The more money is printed, the richer they get. The rest? Just watch life get more expensive by the day. Bottom line, bank-driven credit inflation is a silent machine that transfers wealth from savers to those with privileged access to debt. This is how the wealth gap becomes a chasm, not because of merit, but because of proximity to the money tap. You're still watching? Save this video, because 5 years from now, when the next crisis erupts, you won't be asking, why is this happening? You'll already know who designed it and why you were left behind. Part 7, Recurring Scenarios and the Odds of an Incoming Crisis. It repeats, only smarter each time. After every crisis, the weak are erased. The strong, they get stronger. In 2008, JP Morgan Chase and Bank of America grew even larger. Why? They acquired failing banks dirt cheap, backed by government support. Then what? The elite pushed to loosen regulations again. Credit flowed freely to start the next cycle. This isn't random repetition anymore. It's a designed financial script, intentional, profitable, recurring. The elite's crisis playbook. Before the crash, inflate bubbles using credit and herd psychology. During the crash, use influence to save themselves first. After the crash, get even richer by grabbing distressed assets. Then reload and start the next cycle. No conspiracy needed, just follow the money. Every move is driven by profit. Together, they form a pattern that repeats through history. Understand this, and you'll start to see the capital flows, the shifts in power, and who gains when everything burns. So what's the probability of the next crisis? Short answer? Very high. Because all the ingredients are in place. 1. Extreme global leverage. Global debt sits at 300 to 340% of GDP. In 2007, just before the global financial crisis, only 278%, 25% increase since last time. The financial system is now dangerously fragile. A tiny wave of bad debt could set off a domino collapse. The IMF and World Bank have already warned. Record debt plus high rates equals crisis recipe. So 2. Interest rate shock after a decade of free money. After 10 plus years of 0% rates, the world is facing 4 to 5% interest. Who breaks first? Corporations built on cheap debt. Households used to minimal interest payments. History shows. 1980, Fed hikes, Latin America collapses. 2008, Fed raises from 1%, 5.25%, global meltdown. Today, from 0% to 5% in just 2022 to 2023, faster and sharper than 2008. Ticking time bombs. U.S., commercial real estate, regional banks bleeding from bond losses. SVB, Credit Suisse, just the warning shots. NAS 3, overpriced assets, bubbles on standby, U.S. stock market, S&P 500 PE near 30, well above historical norms. Housing prices in Canada, Australia, Sweden, China, unhinged from local incomes. At these interest levels, asset bubbles are ready to burst. Look at China. Years of debt-driven growth. Real estate is collapsing. Evergrande defaulted. Minsky moments may be happening already. If China, the world's second largest economy, hits a financial wall, the world follows. SHA 4. Liquidity dry up, credit tightening. U.S. M2 money supply is shrinking for the first time in years. Banks are tightening loan standards. Credit demand is falling. Businesses fear expansion. If a shock hits, there'll be no buyers to catch the fall. Prices will collapse domino style. Remember Lehman Brothers 2008? One major institution fell. The entire global system froze in days. In summary, debt system, taut like a violin string. Market mood, delusional optimism. Interest rates unexpectedly high. Liquidity sucked dry. Asset bubbles about to pop. All at once, crisis cocktail. Save this video. Archive it. Share it. Or write it in your financial notebook. because when it hits, it won't come through the news. It'll come like a shadow falling over your portfolio before you can even pull your hand out. Part 8. Debt ratio, policy deadlock, and the invisible laws. Debt soars, income stagnates. We're entering a phase where debt grows faster than income. Governments borrow more than they collect. Corporations borrow more than their profits grow. Households take loans to buy homes and cars, but wages can't keep up. The result? The productivity of debt is collapsing. Every new dollar of debt creates less than $1 of GDP. This is the ultimate red flag. The credit-fueled growth model has hit its physiological limit. Either we accept mass defaults to reset, or we must overhaul the entire financial system. Both outcomes? Deep crisis. No more secret weapons. Remember past crises? Central banks slashed rates. Governments launched massive stimulus packages. Now, that toolbox is empty. Interest rates are already high, but inflation still hasn't hit the target. Public debt has maxed out. Many countries can no longer afford another rescue package. The system is trapped. Loosen policy? Inflation explodes. Tighten further? Defaults everywhere. Experts are blunt. One small shock and the system snaps. There's no buffer left. That shock? It's approaching fast. The global system feels like a truck, overloaded, barreling downhill, brakes worn out, tires thin, the road full of potholes. Early warning models from the BIS, IMF, flashing red across the global financial map. They don't say where it'll break. Could be China's real estate, a US regional bank, or a sovereign default in an emerging country. But if one link breaks, the entire chain collapses. The most dangerous sign? The calm. Stocks still hold. Junk bond yields haven't spiked. Investors believe it's fine now, the Fed will handle it. But remember, 1929, people thought markets would rise forever. 2007, US Treasury said the system was healthy right before it imploded. Crises strike when no one's expecting. With everything that's building up, the probability of a major global crisis within 1 to 3 years is at red alert. No one can give a precise number, but many experts estimate there's over a 50% chance of a global recession. And if that happens, a financial collapse could easily follow. The invisible laws, what few see but all must face. Cantillon effect. Money is not neutral. 18th century economist Richard Cantillon said, "New money doesn't fall evenly. Those closest to the money faucet get it first and gain the most. Those who get it later suffer. Prices have already risen." Modern example? Central banks print money to save the economy, QE. That money flows first into Wall Street, stocks, real estate. Asset owners get richer. Meanwhile, the poor get the leftovers, while prices soar. The result? 2020, hundreds of millions lost jobs. Billionaires gained $2 trillion in just 4 months. Money isn't neutral. Every bailout makes wealth inequality worse. Long-term fallout, the middle class shrinks, consumption stagnates, wealth taxes rise, capital controls tighten, populism grows, financial and social tensions boil over. These forces will shape future policy. More taxes on assets, tighter capital flows, fewer perks for the ultra-wealthy. But the more they try to rebalance, the more volatile the markets become. Investor psychology, capital flow, and asset values swing violently. Pause. Save this video. Write it in your notes. This isn't just a forecast. It's a map to decode the future of global finance. Only one question remains. When the collapse hits, will you be the one swept away or the one positioned to rise from it? Diminishing returns on debt. The more we borrow, the weaker we get. Debt used to be fuel for growth. Now, every new dollar borrowed delivers less. Sometimes it even drags GDP down. S&P Global put it bluntly, the incremental growth from each additional dollar of debt is collapsing. So what do we get? More debt, less growth. But stop borrowing, and the whole system crashes. Japan is the live specimen. Public debt at 250% of GDP. GDP flatlined for 3 decades, and now the West is drifting into the same black hole. Soon, the market will wake up. Investors will demand higher yields to touch government bonds, or worse, they'll stop buying altogether. At that point, governments face 3 brutal choices: long-term inflation to erode debt value, technical default, or radical restructuring, slashing, canceling, sacrificing. All of them are landmines. S&P again, there is no easy path to deleverage the global system. Sacrifice and systemic mindset change are inevitable. It's not a theory anymore. The Great Reset is no longer optional. It's mechanical. Post-World II, whenever the system stuttered, governments hit the same panic buttons. Slash rates, inject liquidity, bail out the weak. Short term, it works. Long term, it breeds false confidence. Players get reckless because they believe someone will always save them. This is the moral hazard loop. The more we save the system, the worse the next collapse gets. Minsky warned, if you don't let the market purge naturally, you're raising zombies and inflating a bubble no bailout can survive. Here's the truth nobody wants to face. The more we avoid small recessions, the more we charge up a super collapse. Financialization, the silent disconnect. Capital no longer flows into factories, real infrastructure, or technology. It loops within finance itself. Minsky called it money manager capitalism. An echo chamber of derivatives, speculation, and leverage on leverage. Innovative on paper, hollow in substance. The real economy gets scraps, if anything. So we've created a parallel universe. Stocks can soar while productivity flatlines. Assets can skyrocket with no foundation. But that gap will close. Markets will recalibrate. And when they do, it won't be gentle. Future capital must flow into the real, or it will burn. Real tech, real energy, real roads. Because what can't go on forever, won't. And then, money itself becomes a weapon. Finance is no longer neutral, it's militarized. The West froze Russia's foreign reserves. The dollar, once the safe haven, is now a geopolitical lever. A new order is taking shape. BRICS talks of a new currency. China pushes RMB for settlements. Gold reserves quietly build up. Swift alternatives emerge. Triffin's dilemma is back with a vengeance. The US must print dollars for global liquidity. But the more it prints, the more trust erodes. If the Fed prints to fight the next crisis, USD may lose its monopoly grip. And when that trust snaps, the global system will quake. A fragmented, multipolar order could rise. Different currencies, competing systems, something we haven't seen since Wu II. Bookmark this. Come back in 2 to 3 years. If it all plays out as mapped, you're not just reading a prediction, you're holding the playbook. Because the question isn't, will there be a crisis? It's when it hits, will you be buried by it, or will you launch from it? The future of finance isn't naturally evolving. It's being quietly engineered. By whom? Not you, not me, but those who pull the system's levers, the ones who can pivot policy, choke or resuscitate entire markets with a single statement. Let's flip the script. If I were them, what would I do? A 5-step game. Precise, ruthless, effective. Step 1, create the illusion of prosperity. I drop interest rates, deregulate lending. I flood the system with cheap credit. I encourage the masses to borrow for homes, stocks, crypto. Asset prices soar. Headlines scream, new era, digital boom, economic miracle. People fall asleep at the wheel. They think they're getting richer, but they're mortgaging their future with debt. Me? I buy early. I profit early. I use leverage with a guaranteed exit. Step 2, pull the plug on the party. Just when the crowd's high on asset gains, I quietly offload. I sell stocks at the peak. I move into cash, gold, government bonds. I secure my bunker, while everyone else is still drunk on euphoria. Then I raise rates. I choke the money supply, like pulling the last chair just as the music stops. The slow ones faceplant. Step 3, trigger a controlled demolition. I choose the spark, a bank collapse, a bond default, a surprise rate hike. Markets panic, stock prices tank, small businesses go bust, unemployment spikes. But I don't flinch. I've got cash. I'm already defensive. The official line? Liquidate, liquidate, liquidate. Cleanse the system. U.S. Treasury Secretary, 1930. Step 4, harvest the blood-soaked assets. Now I buy it all. Homes, companies, land, equity. For pennies. Not because it's cheap, but because no one else has cash to hold on. When you panic sell, I step in. When you fear, I get greedy. Not a motivational quote, a repeatable playbook. Look at 2020. While you pulled out in fear, the billionaires went all in. Their wealth surged nearly 30% in just a few months. Step 5, rewrite the rules. Lock the golden cage. While you're licking your wounds, I'm drafting new laws, barriers to entry, limits on entrepreneurship, stabilizing tools that actually centralize control. Then I roll out central bank digital currencies. It sounds modern, but it's total surveillance. Every dollar you spend, I know. Every account you open, I monitor. This isn't sci-fi. It was declared openly by White House advisor Rahm Emanuel. Never let a good crisis go to waste. Why? Because people only accept change when they're terrified. And that's when I rebuild my castle. Final truth: the future doesn't just happen, it's staged. Crises aren't random, they can be triggered on purpose. Restructuring isn't accidental, it's engineered for power. Restoring order isn't coincidence, it's a rigged board already mapped. Question is, when the next collapse hits, will you be drained like the rest? Or were you holding the blueprint all along? Crisis has never been just a disaster. It's a strategic tool in the hands of those who design the system. Look back at every major financial collapse, and you'll find four ruthless motives behind the chaos. First, asset redistribution. When panic hits, the weak are forced to sell. Who buys? The strong. Who's holding cash? The already rich. It's the largest transfer of assets at discount prices. No war required, just one market crash. Wealth flows from the many back to the few. And the elite emerge richer right when you're stepping away. Second, eliminate old commitments. In normal times, no one dares to. Cancel debt, break contracts, slash entitlements, dismantle legacy structures. But in a crisis, every taboo becomes necessary. Example, high inflation lets governments quietly erase public debt, and you can't sue them for it. Job contracts collapse, companies restructure everything. It's a systemic reset, wrapped in the disguise of inevitability. Third, establish new rules. Every crisis brings a new playbook. 1907, the Federal Reserve was born. 1944, Bretton Woods crowned the US dollar. 2008, Dodd-Frank protected banks too big to fail. Now ask, if I were writing the rules, wouldn't I write them to secure my dominance? Only those who understand the rules benefit, and I'm the one holding the pen. Fourth, reinforce social discipline. Certain power blocks believe the masses need correction. Too much indulgence? Too easy on debt? Too deluded about financial freedom? Then crisis becomes a warning from the monetary gods. Like Andrew Mellon, U.S. Treasury Secretary in 1930, let the failures fail. Let the people relearn thrift, discipline, and hard work. Not moral advice, economic control, social engineering by financial means. Cold-blooded conclusion: if I were the architect, I'd time the crisis when it suits me. I'd manage it so only I survive, while rivals are obliterated, and I'd rebuild the system in my favor, with full approval from a terrified public. How many times has history repeated this? 1907, after the bank panic, U.S. tycoons pushed for the Fed so they could print money at will. 2008, big banks not only got rescued, they devoured smaller ones. COVID-19, ultra-wealthy wealth surged. Central banks grabbed unprecedented power. None of this was random. These are the logical outcomes of power and interest, not accidents. Is another crisis coming? Every indicator is flashing red: debt leverage at extremes, policy reversals, asset bubbles, stagnant growth, persistent inflation. Cycle theory, Austrian, Minsky, Ray Dalio, they all say the same. Every manic boom ends in brutal correction. The bigger risk now? This time the world is financially interlocked. One failure in New York, Frankfurt, Tokyo, or Beijing could trigger a chain reaction. And unlike 2008, governments may not have the tools to respond. Public debt is maxed. Inflation is already raging. But crisis isn't just destruction. It can be a necessary purge to cleanse dysfunctional models and lay foundations for a more just order, as long as the same people don't keep writing the next set of rules. If you've made it this far, save this. Because years from now, when the world burns, you'll remember this wasn't a surprise. It was scripted by the ones who write the narrative. When crisis hits, the wealthy see hunting season. The average person, if they're not alert, they become the dumping ground for losses. So if I don't write the rules, if I don't print the money, what do I do? Before crisis, keep your head clear. Don't buy into the lullaby of bubbles. You'll hear, this is a golden age, just invest. Rates are low, debt is cheap, don't miss out. Stocks and real estate only go up. But who's telling that story? The sellers, not the survivors. When everything looks too good, it's usually the end of a fake cycle. The insiders exit just as you walk in. During crisis, cash is a weapon. While the crowd panics, whoever holds cash has the power to snatch discounted assets, negotiate brutal deals, avoid forced liquidation. Think clearly while others spiral. The elite don't fight crisis with strength. They use contrarian liquidity. Survival strategy for regular people. Don't be the last one holding debt. Avoid borrowing when rates are already high. Avoid leverage when markets are inflated. Avoid chasing what's trendy. Truly diversify. Don't bet everything on one horse: stocks, real estate, or crypto. Don't fall into a single dream. Land always rises, coins always fly. Always hold cash in safe havens. Some in flexible accounts, some in highly liquid assets. Think gold, global ETFs, short term deposits. Watch what the ultra rich do, not what they say. If they say market's stable, they might be exiting. If they say buy now, they probably entered 2 years ago. Fake stability is the most dangerous threat. Ray Dalio said, "When everything looks calm, that's often the moment the fuse is already lit." Minsky warned, "Stability breeds instability." Why? Because when people believe it'll always be fine, they crank up the risk. And the system needs just one spark to implode. Every signal is flashing. Global debt at all-time highs, bubbles across all asset classes, tightening after a decade of loose money, inflation unresolved, rich getting richer, middle class getting crushed. Still believe everything will work out? You're exactly where the chair disappears when the music stops. The real question isn't, will there be a crisis? It's, are you preparing like the insiders are? They've pulled capital out, stocked up cash, locked down media, and they're waiting for the next system reset. What about you? Mentality to survive and grow during chaos. Capital preservation before capital gains. Secure the cash before chasing the yield. Opportunity only favors the prepared. Crisis doesn't kill you. Unpreparedness does. You don't need to predict, just outlast. The rich aren't better at guessing. They're better at positioning. Want to go deeper? Study Ray Dalio's debt cycle principles, Ludwig von Mises and Minsky's economic cycle theory, reports from IMF, BIS, WF on wealth inequality and global debt, Cantillon effect, who benefits first from printed money, Andrew Mellon, purge through crisis doctrine. Last words of this video. The elites are preparing to scoop up assets. The average person is preparing to bleed. Which one are you? Want a 12-step personal checklist to prepare for crisis? Type, "I want to survive," and I'll send you the full guide from the wealth system. Crisis won't wait for you to be ready. It just shows up and decides who gets wiped off the board.